It's the most wonderful time of the year, says the Christmas songs, but is it actually true? The holiday season, in fact, is some of the most stressful parts of the year, if not the most stressful season of the year, because not only is there so much going on, but there's so much memory and there's so much emotion that are tied in to the holiday season. We're going to talk about how that impacts you and your marriage, but first let me introduce myself. My name is Kimberly Holmes, and I'm the CEO of Marriage Helper. At Marriage Helper, we work with thousands of couples to help them grow, fix, and rebuild their marriage, no matter what it has been through. We are releasing new content on this channel every single week, so be sure to subscribe so that you'll be the first to be notified when we have new videos, new live shows, the new things that we're doing in order to help you and your relationship even more. So be sure to subscribe. Some of the reasons that the holidays can be so hard, like I mentioned before, is there's just a lot going on, right? There's all these parties, holiday parties, family parties, work parties. If you have kids, oh my gosh, all the Christmas parties and the programs. And sometimes it feels like you're in school, right? With your kids because of everything you have to do. I'm going through this right now. So there's not only that, but then there's you want it to be a great experience. It's Christmas. You probably have memories of things that you did in your childhood with your family that mean a lot to you. And if you have kids or not, the holidays are still a time where you're wanting to recreate those amazing, special, warm memories because it only comes once a year. And whether you realize it or not, we all enter into the holiday season with a set of expectations. Whether we communicate them or we even consciously realize them, there are things that we are hoping happen. And if they don't, it can really set us off. Let me explain with a story from my husband and I. So when we first got married, our first Christmas we were living in Korea. And we were away from family. We decided not to go home that Christmas so that we could use his leave days because he was in the military. We wanted to be able to use his days off to be able to go travel and experience Asia when we were living over there. So we made the choice to not go home for Christmas. So we stayed, and my family, they shipped me all the way from the United States to Korea a ton of Christmas decorations that my mom used when I was growing up. So I remember getting these boxes and just opening them and seeing the ornaments that I loved as a child, seeing the nativity scenes that I loved playing with when I was a kid. And I loved being able to put these up around our apartment in Korea. But there were other parts of Christmas that growing up, I loved. My mom, you have no idea. She is probably Mrs. Claus because she is the sweetest woman in the world, but her house, when it comes to Christmas time, I'm not exaggerating when I say there's 37 Christmas trees. She has Christmas villages. She collects beautiful Santa figurines. It's the most beautiful place in the world. But not just because of the ornaments and the decorations in the house. My home growing up at Christmas time was the most beautiful place in the world because of the time we spent together as a family. We made it a goal and a priority every Christmas. We had a tradition that we would do. We lived in Nashville, so we would go to the Opryland Hotel as a family. My favorite tradition is every Christmas Eve, we would go to a midnight Christmas Eve service. And I loved that. So when it was our first Christmas married for me and Rob, I carried these expectations of what Christmas would be like into our marriage. And I didn't necessarily communicate this with him because I didn't think to. All I knew was this is what I was looking forward to, and I could not wait to share it with my husband. So it comes to Christmas Eve time. It's Christmas Eve. I'm getting ready to go to the service that was happening on post, the Christmas Eve service. And I go to my husband. I had told him about the Christmas Eve service a couple of days before that I wanted to go to it. It came time to go, and Rob did not want to go with me. Rob did not want to go with me because he wanted to stay home and play video games. It sounds kind of funny. Like looking back on it now, I'm actually still not laughing because it was a thing that happened. I cannot tell you the terrible fight that we got into right before that Christmas Eve service. Because I felt like he did not understand and he did not care about me and he did not want to be with me on my favorite day of the year, on my most favorite tradition that I was most looking forward to, over something that I saw as stupid as video games. Now you can fill in the differences here. It might be something other than a Christmas Eve service. It could be baking cookies. It might be something other than video games. It could be hunting or watching football. I understand those are very gender specific. You can switch them, whatever it is. You get the premise of what I'm trying to say. I had something that meant a lot to me. I had an expectation that I brought into my marriage that I didn't necessarily communicate well, but because that expectation was violated in my eyes, it led to hurt. It led to resentment, long-term resentment. I wish that it didn't take us 7 years before we actually talked about that situation. What ended up happening was I was hurt, he was hurt. Neither of us actually took the time to go back and listen to each other and figure out what was going on in each of our minds and hear each other and then make a plan for what would happen next year moving forward. Instead of doing that like we should have done, we instead just let that resentment just linger right inside of us for 7 years. And not only did that come up at Christmas time, where we expected there to be a fight, we expected there to be frustration, we just expected us to not agree on things, but it ended up being, honestly, something that we started looking for in each other not during the holiday season. It affected the impact that we made on each other during that violation of expectation, not talking about it with each other, not trying to figure out how to do it right, how to understand each other's point of view and what mattered to each other. Since we didn't do that, it didn't just go away on New Year's Day for the next year. Many of the interactions that we had with each other after that, we didn't connect. It ended up, honestly, not just because of a Christmas Eve service, not just because of video games, but because of the rhythm that we got into with our communication from that point, how we didn't talk to each other about how we felt, how we wanted, what our expectations were, different things like that. It continued in our marriage. And it honestly ended up leading to the breakdown of our relationship. We finally recovered from that, and I can say that we finally were able to have the conversation about the major hurt and pain that happened from our first Christmas. I just wish it hadn't have taken so long. But we were able to finally sit down. I shared how it made me feel. He shared how it made him feel. We didn't attack each other. We just told how it made us feel. And each of us had a different reason for wanting to have that conversation. Rob was the one who actually came to me and said, we need to talk about this. And it was hard. Even 7 years later, it was hard because it was such a sensitive subject. It's such a sensitive time of our marriage. Even though it seems like a lighthearted issue, there were some really deep things that went further into it that meant a lot to both of us. For him, from my point of view, it was just video games. But for him, he wasn't seeing it like that. It was his time to be able to have some alone time. He didn't know how much it meant to me because I never explained to him the traditions of my family. So he was unaware. And then he felt attacked. He felt like I was looking down on him, that I was being disrespectful and thought of myself as better than him, which is never how I meant to come across. But I didn't understand that because I didn't take the time to listen to him. I just made assumptions because I was hurt, because my expectations had been shattered. And he listened to me. He heard how I felt about the things that were important to me, the things that mattered to me. We were able to talk about that and not just talk about it from back then, but say, here's what we can do going forward. My husband and I left that conversation, which happened just recently, completely honestly. We left that conversation and I loved him more after we were able to dig back and really talk about that than I did them before we had that conversation. It made our relationship even better. That's the ideal. During this holiday season or any time, there's going to be expectations that you bring into your relationship that you probably aren't communicating. And when they get shattered or violated, it hurts and it can end up where you're taking that out on your spouse. You're assuming the worst about them. Sometimes it's as simple as talking. You may not be in a situation, though, where you're able to talk to your spouse. Maybe there's animosity, there's that resentment that has been built up for so long that if you even tried to broach subjects like this, it would end up like World War III, and I get it. My encouragement to you is if you are in a place where you and your spouse can sit down before the holiday season even happens, and each of you talk about what your goals are, what your wishes are, not what you want under the tree, but what you want for yourselves during this holiday season, what you want for your families during your holiday season. That's the best thing that you can do, especially if you can tie it to why. Why is it important to you that you go to the Christmas Eve service or whatever it might be? If you're in that situation, do that. But if not, if you have the violations of expectations where something didn't go according to plan or you missed doing a big tradition that was important to you, if you're in a situation where you can, then as soon as you can, debrief with your spouse about that. Not by attacking them, but by saying, hey, look, here's what I was hoping would happen. And I know that you didn't understand. I know I didn't communicate. Here's why it's important to me. Next time, do you think we'd be able to do this? Those are the ideal situations. But maybe you're in a situation where you can't speak with your spouse at all about it. The goal is to be able to get your relationship back to being in that safe place so that you can have these conversations. And if you feel like you and your spouse are so disconnected and so far removed from each other at this point that you don't even know how to build that bridge and come back together and talk about anything, we can help you. We have coaching, we have online courses, and we have workshops that exist to help your relationship build that bridge so that there doesn't have to keep being the violations of expectations, to where you can have a true partnership, a true best friend, a true person who is with you, walking beside you through the thick and the thin of it, who's going to assume the best about you, not the worst about you, and that you're going to do the same for them. We want to help you get there. We would love to have you in one of our workshops, online courses, or in our coaching. You can visit our website and see more about what we do at marriagehelper.com, or you can always give us a call at 866-903-0990 and speak with anyone on our team or in our office to get connected with someone who can tell you more about how we can help. We would love to help you. I hope that we can.